Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Profite. I'm the Key Account Manager at Total Materia. And today we're going to be showing you our latest development called the CO2. This is kind of the journey to the net zero. Next to me is sitting a colleague of mine.
Just 1 second, let me settle here. Go. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Boris on the other line. I am a business development manager here at Total Materia, and I will be showcasing the CO2.
There we go. So before we get started, it would be really nice if everybody could just, maybe some of you could just tell us if you can hear me and if you can see our screen. You can use the chat box functionality for that, just to let us know if you can hear us and see our screen. It's also really good to know as well that everybody has been muted. So any questions that you have regarding our new development, please write it down in the chat functionality. And after the session, we will get back to you by mail. All right.
We're just waiting for confirmation if you guys can hear us. Just one person.
Yes. Oh, that's fine.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Right, Tim, take it away.
So just to show you a little bit about the agenda.
Here we are.
So this is the meeting's agenda. What I'll be doing is giving a small introduction of our solution. Then Boris will be taking it away with our new CO2 development, small presentation, and then diving directly into the demo. And then I'll be showing you briefly our green line platform and giving you a small demo regarding that. Then after that, we'll give you a small poll just to give us some information from your side. And then we will organize the follow-ups as well after that, hoping that is all right. So
just click on the other screen. There we go.
So inside Total Materia, before we even get the CO2 development that we've done, just to briefly go over our 4 solutions that we have inside Total Materia. We have, first of all, our Total Materia Horizon. This is where all our reference data is inside a horizon. Our reference data at the moment, we have 82 standard organizations, which are providing us with 39,000 standards and more. And those 39,000 standards plus a lot of proprietary sources are giving us over 700,000 materials. Yes, this is really, really big. The strong suit is that all our data is coming from proper references. It is quality data. And the most important part is that every month of the year, this information gets renewed, revised, or if needed to be withdrawn as well. All right, next to our horizon, we have our Total Materia Integrator. Our Total Materia Integrator is our private data management solution where you can insert all your internal materials, your legacy data, your testing data, any material information, including PDFs, diagrams, multi-points you can include into the integrator. We can also create API connections to your tools, and also even nicer is integrate those approved materials that you have inside your PLM system as well. Then we have a new tool called Predictor. Predictor, the name says it already, it is predicting missing gaps of information through machine learning. Normally, when you look at a material and you look at the reference, some standard, sometimes the standard doesn't provide you with that certain heat treatment or condition or that form that you are looking for. And normally what you would do is go to an equivalent material to find that information that you are in need of. However, even sometimes that equivalent material sadly doesn't provide you with the information that you need. So what normally does happen is companies start to test the materials to find that information that they need. So testing costs a lot of money. And now instead of spending that money, we now can predict those missing gaps of information through our Predictor tool. Instead of testing maybe 20 materials, at the end of the day, you might need to only test 1 or 2 materials to get that information, that reliable information. And then last but not least, we have Green Line. Green line is about compliancy, to understand if a material or substance is compliant according to regulations around the world. Yes. We even have a BOM assessor where you can assess your bill of materials, yes, and understand if that whole list of materials is compliant according to regulations. You can assess up to 5 regulations. If a material is not compliant, really easily find an equivalent material that is, or maybe you can also make exemptions and write notes into the BOM as well and export that list back to an Excel sheet. And then very important, we also have our LCA, life cycle assessment, to understand how green a material is. This we do through indicators, and I'll be showing you this later today inside a demo. But today, actually, all about today is about CO2, carbon emissions. And my dear friend here, Boris, will show you exactly what we've been developing in the last few months for you to take a look at right now. All right, Boris.
So as we have gathered here basically to overview that, inside of the green line we have added an additional tool which is going to be called carbon footprint, and this is an add-on to what we have or what we used to have, or we still have it, but on popular demand, LCA used to work on as a ceiling level. From our clients, we received a lot of feedback that we or them would need, they would like us to include a more precise calculation for the CO2. Thus far, the only way that we were able to, or people were able to calculate CO2 is either hire a professional or hire a professional team, for example, that will be able to do this by a material. However, as we have one of the biggest databases in the world and the most popular cross-referencing functions that we have inside Horizon, we interconnected these two things, therefore that you would be able to, in the future, basically in the first quarter of the next year, you will be able to cross-reference materials by your CO2 designations, by your CO2 criteria. And we'll go over this in a second. I'll show you everything, how everything looks like, how everything is designed, and exactly what will be coming in the future. The most important things is that you will be able to control scrap content, you will be able to control from which country it comes from, you will be able to control the transportation. I will be showing you basically everything in just a second. This entire thing is supposed to be driving your carbon footprint either lower, showing you representations of equivalent materials with lower CO2 and so on. I'm pretty sure everybody already knows what we are here to see. And just like everything else, CO2 is going to be interconnected with other green line modules. So while you are comparing your CO2, you will be able to also assess all the BOMs, all the other LCAs like energy demand or toxicity, check if your materials are compliant. So basically the entire process at the moment will be available within Total Materia. So let me share my screen and let's dive a little bit, or let me show you how everything is being set up. Right. Let me open this one. And let me choose the screen, which is going to be this one. There we go. Just making sure that everybody can see exactly the screen, because on my screen is not showing that you guys can see the Total Materia platform. There we go. And there we go. Just to make sure, because I can't see the preview for some reason, the GoToWebinar decided to die in the last second. Can you guys see the Total Materia platform in front of you? Yes, marvelous. Okay, so without further ado, if people that have been working with Total Materia, it's pretty straightforward. If you're searching for any equivalent materials you want to work with cross-referencing, it was straightforward. You either needed to do through specialized searches, like for example, the advanced searches, or you kind of knew which material you're working with, So it was straightforward. You go into the material, you go into cross references, and from here on, you will be able to choose from what sources are you working with. Standardized sources, are you working with proprietary sources? You will be able to choose it by the country itself. So from now on, you will be able, or in the first quarter, basically in the next year, you will be able to do pretty much the same inside of the CO2. So once you have chosen all the materials you wanted to, you did your research, you did your R&D, and you prepared your list of materials that you want to compare regarding the CO2. You will be able to go into Material Console and you will be able to pull out that list either from a standard list like I could have done it just now, or I can go into my material lists and pull out just like this. So I have 4 different grades here. Don't mind that. It's just an example to show you how everything looks like. You will be in the future able to pull it into a carbon footprint. So there you are. This is the newest tool. This is how it looks like. I'll zoom out a little bit just to fit everything. If you have more than enough materials, if you have many standards, you're working with many groups, for example, you want to pull out the entire bill of material in here, you will be able to filter things before you start. So it's kind of an overview. It's going to be a little bit easier to work in the future. But let's see how everything is being calculated. So here is all 3 or 4, the one I opened just before. I will be able to choose the references. That means that you will need to choose which conditions you're working with, which criteria or which composition is the one that you're calculating for. Once you find it, you will be able to save it, and then afterwards start adding parameters like manufacturing, processing, and transport. So for example, for country of origin, we can choose something like, let's do Europe, and let's do a little bit. I'm not going to choose blast furnace. You can, but if you choose blast furnace, you won't be able to add any of the recycled content. So I'm going to be choosing this and telling him that our recycled content is going to be something like 30%. For aluminum, for example, it's going to be a little bit different. I'll show you in a second. And we're going to go and add the processing. In processing, the list is going to be long, depending on which materials you're working with. We're working on expanding this list, of course. If something is not inside while you're testing, you will be able to give us feedback and we'll do a investigation and we'll be adding it afterwards to the total material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose something random. Let's go hot rolling, and we are going to bring it, for example, from Germany. Add that to the list, and in the end is going to be the transport. Which transport do you guys use the most? So for example, we can do something simple like train. We can do an electricity train, and the distance is going to be, if we are transporting from Germany, for example, to France, let's say something like 350 kilometers is going to be more than enough. We can add that, save everything, and now the only thing that we need to do is ask the system to calculate everything. Exactly just like everything else, you will be able to export all of these functions. And while you're looking at everything will be everything you can edit while you're doing. So here, for example, I can compare and I can see what is going to be the carbon emission if I had 50%. Calculate, and I have the numbers straight away. If we go into aluminum, here, for example, when I go into manufacturing processes, this is undefined at the moment. This is because there is, in most cases, you're working with recycled content, and this is the average value. If something concrete needs to be added, of course, you will be able to give us that feedback. And in here, we can basically choose 70%. Usually we're working with 70 or 80 or 90% of recycled content. Same thing with processes, same thing with transportation. Once I add everything, I will be able to calculate the carbon emissions. And more importantly, for polymers, you won't be able to choose, for example, the country of origin or manufacturing rate. It says exactly why in the bottom. We are working at the moment with global averages. However, here you will be able to choose what kind of processing you're working with. This also means if you're working with powder coating with metals, you will be able to choose how much is covered. in square meters. So in the end, you will be able to tell them exactly or if the metal is being cut, you will be able to tell them exactly what percentage per square meter is being cut. So that is also being taken effect within the calculations themselves. So here, for example, I can choose injection molding. Again, I can choose the country. Let's go with Europe, add transportation. We can choose anything. Basically, I don't have to at the moment. Let's go with the global average, and I can ask the entire thing to be calculated. Make sense? Pretty much. Let me show you what will be coming soon. So I'll stop sharing my screen in a second. Let me open the presentation once again. Where we are right now and where we are moving. Give me a sec. There we go. We open this one, we share our screen, and let's do this. There we go. So, next developments. What is in the pipeline in the future? As I said in the beginning, one of our most important features is basically cross-referencing. And this is what we are trying to deliver as fast as possible, which is going to be equivalent per cross-reference per CO2. That means for all that you have selected, all the manufacturing processes, the transportation and everything else, everything will be taken into account while you're looking into CO2 cross-references. Next thing is going to be same thing with saving, sharing. At the moment you are able to export it, but more importantly, while you're working on a project, you will be able to save every single process, every single step of the way. And another thing that we're going to be adding is going to be visual representation of what is taking most amount of CO2. Is it going to be the transport? Is it going to be the manufacturing? Or is it going to be something else? So in the end, this is of course under development. It's just a visual representation of how we see it, of how important it is. Having a full picture in front of you is what we value. And of course, we see that as a big benefit for you as well. In the future, our new tool has already begun, or today I received the key for it. You will be able to start testing basically either from today or from tomorrow. Official date was on 11th, but we were able to move that a little bit back. In the Q1, we will be adding these features, and then afterwards in Q2, depending on what kind of feedback we receive, we'll be continuing on the development from there. That's pretty much everything for the our CO2 here. I'm gonna give you back to our team that is gonna be speaking a little bit more about this energy demand and ceiling levels for the available LCA tool that you have if anybody's using Green Line. Tim, please.
Thank you, Boris. That was nice. Let's carry on. So inside our Green Line, we also have our development called LCA. And exactly like Boris said, LCA is meant for ranges, so sealed ranges, because it's rather important, because we have a lot of engineers that don't have that criteria before they even start a project. Yes, so if there's designers out there or a company is doing a tender, do they know actually where they're going to get the material from? Who's going to manufacture it? Do they know the process, or any of these criteria that Boris was talking about earlier? And then before we even start the project, you still want to know what the life cycle is, what the ranges, the sealed ranges are of materials. And that is where our development LCA comes to use. Also, other developments such as compliance is really important, because if you're going to make a material or a product, or export that product that has too much of an element inside that is prohibited, you will have a problem. I can give you a small example. I think 10 years ago, a company imported game consoles into Europe, and there was too much lead in the game consoles. The European Union fined them millions of euros. Yes, so it's so important to understand what the compliance here is of materials, and of course also what the carbon emissions are of that material as well. We have another slide just to go further. Just to a little bit highlight how important it is, the process today. I think 10 years ago, engineers were just classically trying to find materials. Is it suitable for the task? Does it have the properties and the values that they need? Which group of material they're going to use? Does the supplier have that material that they're looking at? And if so, let's carry on. Nowadays, in 2023, it doesn't start from material selection. It starts from compliancy. Does that group of materials that I'm looking at, are they compliant according to regulations around the world? Are those materials and that I'm looking at inside that list, how green are those materials? And what are the CO2 emissions of those materials? And that is something very important you should be looking at even before you do a material selection. Let me quickly go back to our platform. Boris will help me with that because I'm not very technical. There we go. So thanks, Boris. So Boris will showing you our new tool called CO2, but we also have a tool inside Total Materia called LCA. Yes. So I'm going to delete Boris's list. Here we go. Delete this list. And I gave this morning a list of my own to Boris to take a look at. Here's again the list of materials inside my console. Here's my list, and I'm going to open this list inside my list builder. And this list, so what Boris showed before, he added it to the carbon footprint to get detailed information of each of these materials, their processes, and the precise carbon emissions of each of those materials. However, like I said before, sometimes you want to know the ranges. What you can then do is forward it to our LCA. Through LCA, you can add indicators. Which indicators are important to you? We've been talking a lot about climate change and CO2, carbon footprint, but other indicators are also very important, such as the energy demand, or how toxic is these materials for humans, or what does it do to the ozone layer or to the land use. These other indicators are also becoming more and more important, such as the CO2 emissions as well. So for example, I can click on energy demand, click on the indicator and save it. And automatically the method will be added as well, which calculation method we are using. Human toxicity, you can see how many types of indicators we have. You can choose the one that you need, press on save, and automatically it will be saved. Just quickly to show you again, also we have this for climate change. You can choose the climate change that you need, which indicator, press and save. You can even add endpoint damage indicators as well, but we're going to leave it for this. And when you scroll down, you'll be able to see the materials that have added to the list and press on calculate. So automatically you'll be able to see the values in kilograms for CO2, for disease incidence, and also energy demand. Of course, you can also change the condition. Yes, you can click on this and then choose the condition that you needed, because sometimes a different condition, a different reference has a different chemical composition. So be very careful and choose the right condition that you are in need of. Once you've done that, you can simply press on calculate. Yes, and then press benchmark that material, click on a material as a benchmark, and then you'll be able to rank those materials and then see actually which of these materials are the most greenest to use. So you can see the benchmark. Yes, the benchmark is actually the 4th greenest material, but these first 2 materials, and the 17.4 pH and the 1.4549 are actually the 2 most greenest materials. Even the 17.4 pH has a 20% less CO2 average. Also, this also has a 20%, and this one even has a 28%. So you can see actually how this material is so much greener than the benchmark, but you can also go down and you can see a whole lot of materials that are actually much worse than the bench material as well. And if you want, you can take all of these materials and just to prove and justify that material decision that you're making, you can actually forward this list to a simple Excel sheet. Yes, to help you justify that decision that you've made through our LCA. All right, we have 1 more minute. Time is going so fast. I also wanted to show you a bit of compliance, but more importantly, the time is more important. What we'd like to do is we'd like to send out to everybody that is taking part of the session a quick poll. That'd be wonderful. Just to let us know if you would like to have further discussions with us and which topics you'd like us to discuss. Maybe Boris can put us back onto the slides.
While they're viewing the poll, they won't be able to see anything else.
Oh, yeah, we can take that time to go to the other slide.
Yeah, just take your time to while you're doing the poll, we'll be able to speak about our experiences this far. Just as Tim says, slowly we're becoming more, like, engineers are becoming more versatile. It's not only about design, but you will be able to give engineers that option to either go a little bit more into detail or give them this, as we call it, the ceiling level. However, majority of companies that I'm working with, they usually have one person that is checking specifically CO2. We have somebody that is concentrating on that. However, engineers will be able to look into these numbers before they begin a project, because the last thing that we wanna, or you wanna do, is begin a project. Afterwards, we realize the CO2 is not gonna be good, or the transporting that we wanted to use emits more emissions. And then afterwards begin the project all over again. That's the thing, for example, that we're trying to avoid. Right. Thank you, everybody who is right now answering the poll. There's one last thing that we're gonna go over, which is gonna be, Tim wanted to speak a little bit about compliances.
Yes, so compliance is also a really important part of it. Inside Total Materia, we have compliance for materials and substances. Materials include metals, ferroalloys, non-ferroalloys, but also really important, the polymers. Yes, understanding if the polymer that you're using is compliant to regulations as well. If compliancy and regulations is something that you would like to follow up with us about, please let us know. We'd love to show you a one-on-one demonstration of that tool. At the moment, we don't have time for that, but it's not a problem at all. I think once the poll is finished, my colleague Boris will show our contact details and a little bit about the process. If you're interested in talking about us further with this topic, what the process for that will be. Boris will be doing that right now.
Absolutely. For those that are watching us from LinkedIn at the moment, you guys can't see the poll, of course, because this is generated from the GoToWebinar. If you would like us to contact you after the webinar or sometime in the future, if you know any time or dates, you will be able to comment it straight away into the webinar. And afterwards, I will be able to reach out to you once I know if you guys want to be reached out to, of course. So let me close this. Let me open one last time the presentation and show you our last slide so that we can release everybody to go and do their duties. Here we are. Show. There we go. So what comes next? People that view this as something very, very important will be able to reach out to you either via email. Feel free to do so yourself as well. These are our contact details. You will be able to open test accounts, and you will be able to validate if this is going to be something that is going to be working for you or not. Like that, we'll be able to build the ROI if necessary for the management, and then afterwards it is up to you. Will you be purchasing? Will you be working with us or not? That's everything we wanted to show you guys today. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you too from my side. We're just a few minutes over time. That usually never happens. Sorry about that. Hoping to contact you all soon. Hoping to hear from you. And if we don't speak anymore, wishing you all a happy holiday season and a happy new year. Thank you so much.